Righto, now on Campbell's comments, catching up with a much lighter dressed Brad Steele. Firstly, I wish I was in Queensland, mate.
Yeah, hello Paul. Yes, it's a balmy 23 degrees here in Queensland. I was just about to reach for the jumpers this afternoon, but it's flattened out at 23 degrees at a top today for us.
I'll do a little bit of a teaser. I do a New Zealand show and I interviewed Anthony Butt yesterday, and I was rugged up more than what I am now. He actually had a T-shirt on just to rub my nose in it. Brad, firstly, you're the chairman of Albion Park Harness Racing Club. Right at the minute, all the focus is on Albion Park and Queensland racing in general, but Albion Park is at the forefront. You must be excited and also rapt that at the, I suppose, the way it's been captured and the amount of coverage that you're getting, especially, I don't know if you realise, but you're getting a lot of coverage down here in Victoria. Yeah,
we certainly are, Paul. And look, from an Albion Park perspective, we're privileged to be able to host, such an iconic new race for Queensland Harness Racing, but obviously for Australasia as well, given all the attention and the focus that it's got. And I think one of the great things that, we're excited about is it's created a whole raft of new narratives and conversations with people. And even yesterday, I saw a whole lot of owners doing up videos pitching for a spot in the final Rising Sun Field this weekend. So I thought there's a new stretch within our business that I hadn't seen before, just as a result of the Rising Sun.
And it's created a bit of banter, and I'm going to try and get it to people correct on social media as well, which is key. I mean, it's great to have a great race meeting, but it's the build up and even the post race that creates these excitements, and this is one thing you guys have been able to capture. And I'm just trying to find, Adam Hamilton put a post out yesterday saying that Krug will draw barrier 1, and then I'm not sure who it was, but one of the female trainers, and I will find it and I apologise to her. I should have. Gemma Hewitt, definitely, yeah. And Gemma turned around and goes, "What about us?" And I think those things are what makes a great race in itself, is that this conversation. Now all of a sudden you guys have embraced it up there. Adam Hamilton has as well. It's been caught on social media and been able to change the way people look at it at a race series.
Well, I think it's part of the what has been trying to be created here, Paul, is it's an iconic race that is going to attract people's attention. It's going to attract opinions, similar to what a Miracle Mile does, where people always are interested on what would be the final makeup of a Miracle Mile. And there's always, people, with differing views. And I think we don't have many races around Australasia that generate that sort of narrative and opinions. And I think this race is certainly doing that. And you've seen through social media in particular, lots of commentary. And Adam correctly did point out that Krug will draw 1 or 2 because there's 2 3-year-olds now in the final field, and also a mare. So technically Adam was right, but certainly Adam and people like Brittany Graham and other people have done a great job, Chris Barsby, in generating lots of interest. But as you've said, it's actually multiplied as a result of a lot of the content that they've been putting out, and it's attracting comments from people that I don't know, I've never heard of within the industry before. So it certainly spread its wings far and wide, which is partly what we wanted to do.
It has indeed, and I just saw then, I give up looking on the feed, but I saw Adam posted there that David Brick was on 927 today at 10 past 12, and he's a bit of a loss to harness racing here in Victoria, I think anyway, Bricky, but he's a great man, does a great job, and he's really changed things up. He's got a bit of, he'd be great on Campbell's comments because he thinks a little bit differently, which I really embrace.
No, I think you're right, Paul. I think, and yeah, it's great. We're happy to take more good Victorians up here in Queensland. But David's done a great job. He's a good lateral thinker. He does think outside the box, and I think that's certainly what harness racing in Queensland has needed. And David's been at the forefront of a lot of innovation in racing here in Queensland in the last couple of years, which is fantastic. And he's been enabled by Racing Queensland to start with a blank canvas and see what might be possible. And I think that sort of fresh thinking is definitely what our industry needed here in Queensland.
I know down here, Harness Racing Victoria, and I don't actually work for Harness Racing Victoria. I promote harness racing, and I do work for them, but I'm not a paid. A lot of people think I am, but they cop a little bit of flack because we sit back here on a Saturday night and we watch what you guys are doing at Albion Park, Redcliffe, and the Queensland Racing, and the likes, with your footage of the races, which I think is outstanding in the way that you've been able to showcase and show how we can do it. Firstly, that coverage, it's just taken it to a whole new level, hasn't it?
It has, Paul. I think it's giving people, different perspectives on how our races are run, you're practically in the driver's seats with some of those visions that are coming through. And I must say that I don't think we've seen the last of innovation in terms of those shots and other optics that might appear on the TV screens, particularly through the Constellations Carnival. You might see some new optics through Sky from the creek as part of the coverage, but I do think there's more and different shots that can be brought to the screens just to give people a different perspective on harness racing. And I think they're fantastic shots indeed. But look, some would say they're a best practice, Paul, and I think when the thing I've noticed in time, sometimes when you see a best practice, the biggest challenge is others taking it on board for whatever reason, and it's okay to be a follower. Fortunately at this stage, Queensland, we're leading the way rather than following, but I'm sure that it will become contagious over time.
Oh, if you want harebrained ideas, give me a yell too. I've got plenty of them. You're the second interview I've done today, Brad, who's left their phone on. Ken Brecken got a mention before. Is that an important person that just said that one or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure Ken's actually going to make his way over to Queensland. He's got a big business back there in
New Zealand,
north of Island of New Zealand. But yeah, Ken, I'm sure will be making his way across with his wife Karen, who I have met before, and are looking forward to hosting a lot of Kiwis here in Queensland. I guess they probably haven't brought their jumpers with them either. As you said, it'll be quite mild this weather by comparison. But we've got a lot of Kiwis making their way across. Obviously, COVID conditions will play a key role in that, but we're looking to take some foreign currency off them while they're here.
One of the things I wanted to stick up for, just before we go off that technology and the way that you have done things with harness racing, and I understand this as well because things aren't cheap and technology is a unique thing that can break down. I had a very bad week last week with dropouts and things that can actually work. One of the hardest parts for Queensland is also one of the pluses for you, because you only have a couple of tracks, to be able to set up a lot of these camera shots and to be able to capture it right around the whole track, and that has actually made it, although it is expensive, you basically only have to do it for the two tracks, which makes it then a cost-effective manner. So I know a lot of Victorians especially say, oh, why don't we do this over here? Yet I think people would get a shock at the cost that it does take to set these up. From the club's point of view, that's got to be a little bit of a risk for you to make sure it works, but it's also got to be something that you're excited to see the feedback that you get at the other side of it.
Absolutely, Paul. I think you've got to weigh up your risk and reward and see which bucket you want to play in. I think we think it's a good investment, and Racing Queensland are also sharing the cost of that investment as well. But we think that there's more reward and upside than risk, and sometimes you do have to invest to grow, as most people would probably realise. And I think this is going to prove to be a great investment.
Oh, it already has, because I now turn on to Sky Channel to watch Queensland Racing just to see what you have got going. If I could give a drive-by to Sky Channel or whoever actually does it, it's only a small one, but I just think if you could have that same footage for the replays, so people who may miss the live coverage can go back and actually watch with those drone footage, and even take it to another level, those driver's seats. Imagine just having a whole race where you see what Anthony Butt was seeing behind Krug, the entire race, something along those lines. It's a little pick.
Yeah, look, it's absolutely right, Paul. I guess you're trying to cater for a lot of different audiences out there, and the feedback that I've got sometimes is particularly people who love getting their stopwatch out and clocking and those sorts of things. That sometimes those innovative shots, stuff up their plans as well. So we also need to be mindful that we still want those people to be able to continue to do the work that they do to try and try and find those winners. So I think we've just got to find that good medium that's going to please 90% of the audience.
Ideally, you got a remote with some buttons. You can push one to view this, view that, view that. That'd be sensational. I can promise people sitting there saying, "Yep, that'd be great." It costs, and it costs a lot. And it's not even once it costs and it's paid for. It's not quite that simple just to roll those things out. Brad, the elephant in the room. Albion Park cops a lot of criticism for being a dated venue. Whether it should sell, whether you should keep it, like it needs a lot of work and the rest. With the rise of Queensland racing, that's sort of dropped off a little bit. I haven't been to Queensland for a few years now. Have you been able to get some of the works done and you're able to sort of, I suppose, ease some of the participants' worries?
Yeah, I think we've definitely made some inroads there, Paul. I mean, Albion Park Harness Racing Club, we're a tenant of the Albion Park complex. At the end of the day, Racing Queensland are the landlords, so that's a strength and a weakness for our club. But certainly we have made some capital improvements at Albion Park. We've opened up the new Creek Bar, which is a members bar at Albion Park. Now, it was a joint venture between Racing Queensland and Albion Park. We tipped in a fair amount of money to create a new facility there for members and also participants. And you'll see through the Constellations Carnival at Albion Park, there's a new infrastructure that hopefully has been built as we speak. We were supposed to pour a concrete slab last week, but that wasn't possible because of the COVID. So we've come up with Plan B, but you'll see some more infrastructure come up over the next week at Albion Park. But we've got to be mindful that, that we don't know what the long-term future is for Albion Park. My personal view is I think we should stay and develop Albion Park into a world-class harness racing facility. But as the tenant, we don't have a lot of say in that. But we'll certainly have some strong opinions around that. But I'm suspecting that over the next period of time, Paul, will get greater clarity around that. But the other point that certainly Albion Park are very strong on is ensuring that there is, I guess, an all-encompassing infrastructure master plan co-created for Queensland Harness Racing. I think that's the missing part for us in the short to medium term in the future, is that there's been a lot of great work done, but we certainly do need better, different and more facilities for both participants and also the public to attract more people back to the track on a more regular basis.
It's a sort of simple analogy, but if you go to play for a football team, if the change rooms aren't up to scratch and the ground is not up to scratch and you can go somewhere else for the same money, you're going to go somewhere else. So it's one of those things to try and have everything. It doesn't have to be the best. If it is the best, it's great, but it doesn't have to be the best, but it has to be where people are comfortable and feel at home, isn't it?
There's a lot of work that we still need to do there, Paul, because as you'd appreciate, it's really comfortable just to sit at home and watch the great coverage on Sky Channel. So we've really got to come up with, what's our point of difference to get people out of their lounge chairs at home and come to, live harness racing. And the example I give people is this is, I guess, the proposition that we put out at the moment is that our meetings normally run for about 4 hours. And let's say we have 10 races and you have each race runs for about 2 or 3 minutes. So over 4 hours, you actually have 30 minutes of real harness racing entertainment for people to watch. And if someone said to you, Paul, hey, let's go to the MCG, you're going to sit in the stand for 4 hours, but you only get to watch 30 minutes of a game of AFL, it's not a great proposition. So that's the problem that we need to solve for, is how do we plug the other 3.5 hours of meaningful entertainment, for a more diverse audience. So I think that's part of the solution that we need to come up with new experiences. It's certainly got to be comfortable, but there has to be that point of difference as to why people would want to come back to the track rather than sit at home. And I think that's something that all clubs and administrators should certainly be working on.
And I also think that that's something that participants need to be aware of, that sometimes they might say, oh, there's a rock band. Why has the Creek got a rock band on this week? It's silly. But it could be that there's a university O Week or something just up the road, so to try and capture a new audience and the things. Participants don't like change. Participants like comfortable, like everything to be the same, only want more prize money and better horses and then more prize money. So they have to be aware that there is this juggling act by everyone, and it's not just you guys in Queensland. It's every harness racing jurisdiction, every racing jurisdiction are trying to do that. But I think the way you thought about that, it should make a lot of sense to a lot of people. That, like you said, there's half an hour of entertainment for 4 hours. Doesn't seem logical.
It's not a great proposition, and we know that the lot of our participants, they'll turn up irrespective. I go to most meetings every Saturday night, but I think there's changing needs within the community, and I think we need to make sure that we're keeping up with what people want from almost. I view harness racing and certainly clubs these days as almost like retailers. So you do need to have a retailer mindset in terms of how you're going to get out there and attract a new audience to your facility, but then keep them coming back on a more regular basis. So I think we're thinking that through at Albion Park at the moment. We've come up with some unique memberships and how we can track our members' expenditure habits and how often they come to the track, and there's certain things that we can do to try and activate members and new audiences to come back to the track, but not just once, time and time again. So I think there's a lot of great tech out there at the moment, Paul, that that we're certainly looking at utilising to try and get those people back to our track. But as you pointed out, you've got to have good facilities, safe facilities, and something that people will want to come to on a regular basis. And by our own admission at Albion Park at the moment, whilst we have spent a lot of money, we're doing the best we can with what we've got. But I think this is not where we're going to finish.
No.
We're only halfway to where we need to be.
And I think that's key. And I think the fact that you just said it then, that is one of the key messages, that you're not finished. So people can turn around and say, "I have a look at this. You're not finished." So
we're definitely not finished, Paul. And I think with a lot of the innovation that you're seeing in Queensland at the moment, the way I see it, this is just the start. It's not something that you start and then put your hand up and say, "Well, we're done." This is just the start of the innovation that Racing Queensland are driving through harness racing and also the clubs as well. This is not just the start. This is there's much more that we can do. So it's got a lot of legs yet to come.
I can talk for a long time, Brad. I know I won't continue to go because people would be like, "Oh, this guy's just banging on the same time." The Rising Sun, the barrier draw is done tonight. How excited is it? People bring in new races. There's no problems there. I'm not going to say it's the latest race that's been brought in and all the rest. But as the chair of the club hosting this race that has got, Harness Racing Australia, and don't worry, New Zealand, because I've done an interview just recently with the guys in New Zealand. They're all aware of it. There are people well and truly aware of this race. You must be pumped, firstly, to have the race here and this build up like it's almost Christmas time, if you like, on Saturday night.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Look, as I said, I think Albion Park, we're absolutely privileged to be hosting a race like this, and given all the hype and the coverage that it's got and the significant build up, and I've been getting lots of text messages today from people saying, what time's the barrier draw tonight? Where are people going to draw? Who made the final field? Who's going to be driving? Who's going to lead? There's lots and lots of behind the scenes chatter as well that we don't just see, that's just on the social media. So, and then when you see the field that's come together for the first running, it's an unbelievable field. So I think the commentary shortly is going to shift to those experts that can talk about speed maps and how the race is going to be run, and we know the 2-3-year-olds are going to draw barrier 1 and 2, and we know the only mare in the race is going to draw barrier 3. So I think if you've seen some of the commentary already, I think it'll go to a next level once this barrier draw is made. The social media will go ballistic with all sorts of views on how the race is going to be run, and then we think about the sort of times that could be possible on Saturday night. The track will be a good surface. It could be a track record time waiting to be broken.
Is the weather good? Because unfortunately on Saturday night just gone, it looked very wet.
Yeah, it was. We got a lot of rain and it persisted all through Saturday. But the track curator, Tony Turpin, prepared the track the night before on the basis that it would be rain affected. So we were all prepared for that. And at this stage, the sun's out here in Brisbane today, and they're forecasting a pretty good week, Paul. But the track people will make sure that we've got a fair racing service for Saturday night. But I think, given the quality of the field, there's a very good chance that we might see a another record broken. And we only saw that at Redcliffe a few weeks ago, where they broke 4 records in the one night. And Expensive Ego, 152 last Saturday night at Albion Park, eased down on the line by Luke McCarthy. So it'll be interesting to see what time they can run. And I think a lot of the chatter now will be around how people read this race being run on Saturday night following the barrier draw at 6:30 tonight.
Do you claim Luke McCarthy? Because technically he's New South Wales born, Queensland raised, but back living in New South Wales. Do you guys claim him and Belinda?
Most definitely, yes. Luke had all his early success in Queensland, so we take full credit for all of that, and that would also include Andrew McCarthy and Todd McCarthy. We claim them as Queenslanders as well. They're doing great stuff over there in America, and John McCarthy, I'd probably claim John and Narelle as Queenslanders as well. I know they moved up from Bathurst initially, but I think they've spent enough time in Queensland to be Queenslanders.
You're obviously a purebred Queenslander. You're not a Victorian that's escaped up there by the sounds of the way you spoke just then.
Yeah, no, I'm a purebred through and through, Paul.
Very quickly, the Trotters, you got to see one of the best that I've seen anyway for a long time as far as a young filly goes anyway, Pink Galahs on Saturday night. But the Trotters are making a real impetus now in Queensland racing, and to see a mare like her, you must have loved it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, some describe her as a diminutive type trotter, but boy, that was a great run on Saturday night. You just had a sense there with her sitting back in that field that once it was clear running, it was going to run over the top of them. And I think Pink Galah's got a cult following as well, certainly out of Victoria, but now in Queensland as well. And I think that Dale Alexander Trotting Championship has brought together some fantastic trotters. And I know Ricky Elchin was keen to bring Tough Monarch up as well, but it wasn't quite 100% right to bring to Queensland. Otherwise, we potentially could have seen Tough Monarch here as well. But and definitely the trotters in Queensland are growing in interest up here. More and more owners are getting into the trotters, and we've got some good prize money races coming up here as well. But I think trotting races right throughout certainly the eastern seaboard seems to be taking up more and more races on our calendar all the time, which can only be good for our racing.
Oh, absolutely. I do a Facebook live show, Breed to Succeed. I did it last night with Nick Hooper. You could have come on and joined us. We would have just been waxing lyrical about the trotters, and especially the mare trotters in general. But be careful pacing people. The trotters are coming, but we need, at the end of the day, this is not about trotters, pacers, 3-year-olds, Queenslanders or Victorians. Harness racing needs everyone to be going well. A few years ago, Queensland racing wasn't going that great. Things were going. What you guys have been able to do, I think, is sensational, and I think everyone else has just got to sit back, clap yous, and support yous, and then strive to be better than yous as well. Like, we've really got to try and everyone's got to lift their game. But I think, Brad, what you guys are doing there at Albion Park with your coverage, facilities, and changing things up, I think well done to you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, look, it's you're right to say that we've been pretty flat for a number of years in Queensland, but certainly over the last few years there's been some great innovation, lots of new energy within Queensland. But I think our hero product, the Q-Bred, has also been an enabler for the growth in our sport, and I know there's more that is and will be done in our Q-Bred scheme, and already we're seeing at least 2 new stallions move up from another state south of Queensland. I won't mention where it's coming from in New South Wales, but there's 2 stallions relocating to Queensland, and we know that people are bringing mares in foal into Queensland because they know when that foal is foaled down that it is eligible for Q-Bred. So we're seeing our foal numbers now starting to increase after probably a decade of regress. We're starting to see positive foaling happening here in Queensland. I think, as I said, we're just in the early days of quite remarkable growth.
Campbells got a new sponsor in Yowie Dam Farms, or Harasta Trotters, and I know Queensland is well and truly on their radar as well. just in case anyone's wondering, they weren't either of the two stallions that Brad was talking about. But I actually know of one, and I thought that the one I know of has been announced. So I think you guys are doing pretty good up there. We're not going to mention any names in case they haven't been 100% announced, and I get myself into trouble. But I think well done, and I think well done to everyone behind the scenes as well. You and I are having the conversation up here, but I think well done to everyone who is pushing it. I did an interview with Anthony Butt, spoke glowingly about the whole campaign, about everything that is going on there as well. It's on my New Zealand show. I might release it later in the week just as a single video as well. But it's a great little insight. When you get guys like Anthony Butt praising you, I think you're doing everything well. Very well done, Brad. Thank you very much for joining me, mate.
Yeah, nice talking to you, Paul. All the best.